Hello, and welcome back to the next episode, and in fact, next season of Speak. This is actually season 5, which I don't know about you, Lisa. I'm absolutely chuffed to be able to say that this is season 5. And we're going to be digging into something a little different. So we've had sort of eras of Speak, and we've had me and Elisa, and we've had Speak Seat, and we've absolutely loved our time doing those. But one of the things that's been very consciously on our mind is the fact that we are one of the few professions that don't engage with our research. So season 5 is actually going to be really dedicated to lots of the fun that me and Elisa have in terms of banter around. I would rather chew a jean jacket than read a massive book or huge papers, just because I find it massively overwhelming. And Elisa is absolutely into that stuff. And then we got to thinking, well, what would make it accessible? Actually, why would we not use this platform to chunk down that research, to share it with the audience, to make it manageable, and actually to have the crack and have a good debate about it? So, welcome to this episode of Speak. Elisa, anything on your mind before we crack into this episode and what it's all about?
Um, well, look, yeah, season 5. I just think that's fucking wild that we've done because in a fit of like digital organization last week, I don't know if you see it, I did all the relabeling. It's just like
Yes.
season 1, 2, season 2, 3. Oh, that just that scratched an itch. But yeah, I just never thought that we would be going like over 2 years now. It's mad.
I don't think I've consistently done anything for over 2 years.
No.
Uh, but
So
yeah, it's pretty
so yeah,
magic.
I just think like fair play to us.
Cheers.
Fucking cheers to
Cheers
that.
to over 2 years. Yeah.
And
Fabulous.
and yeah, and look on the research bit, it's not easy. There's so much of it out there. It can be so overwhelming. Um, and I just don't think anybody has. Some people don't have the interest, but a lot of people don't have the time.
Yeah.
Uh, so like even the other week, I printed it. I was like, this looks like really cool paper. Somebody had shared it on LinkedIn. I printed it off. And like I even did a little post on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, I'm about to read this thing, like blah blah blah. And sure, I got halfway through it. And it's
Yeah.
still sitting there and it's not finished. And I'm like, damn it. So, so that should probably be the first one we do after this episode. But yeah, I think we'll see how we go. It's kind of what crops up, what's out there. I think, yeah, like we had been speaking before we started recording about like speak response to, which I like that idea of a paper comes out or we see somebody else talking about a piece of research and we're like, right, let's have a cut off of that.
Yeah.
See how we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Love that. Speak response. That's season 5. I think the other thing actually, and it might cure some people's guilt, is for you that has a natural inclination for the research, you can still pick up a paper that you value and get halfway through and be like,
Yeah,
I just
100%.
can't get back to it.
Yeah.
Which I think is why and for the audience listening, we're going to be really conscious in chunking up. So things
Mm.
that feel overwhelming. And one of the things that I feel particularly, even when having a bit of a pre-debate, which we never usually do, um, it was like this piece of research clashes with this piece of research, and it's like, oh my god, to actually consume it all and its clashing counterparts and everybody's voiced opinion. I think we can get lost in, well, what are you meant to believe? Well, actually, we just have to start with the fundamentals of what you believe. And if you agree with a piece of research that represents your workplace or what you've seen, great.
Mm.
And respond to that, right? Give us that feedback. Tell us that, you know, the research does represent or doesn't represent the workplace. What we're trying to start here, I think probably for the first time, is really healthy debate about bite-sized research chunked up into bite sizes so we can consume it and we can actually really start engaging with the incredible people that are actually out there doing the research, doing the work, so that back to one of our first ever conversations on this, um, I'm like, I just would rather do it. I would just rather be out in the workplace and see what falls over rather than read a book to tell me what will fall over. And you're like, what if someone's already done it? What if someone's already done it and proven
Mm.
that actually it's unhelpful? why go through the trauma? And I'm like, oh, that is a bloody good point. Actually,
Yeah. And
going
and
down
like
the
and
road.
everything is context specific anyway. So just because it didn't work for somebody else doesn't mean it won't work for you. But if loads of people have tried it, I mean, this is dog shit, and you're like, yeah, no, I'll give it a go. It's like, well, there is research there that says we probably could be spending our time in a more productive way.
Yeah, amazing. So it probably brings us to the next 3 episodes. So we don't usually have a massive plan. We book people in because they want the speak seat and they have their topic. But really interestingly, we're going to be taking these reports and we'll be splitting them up into the bite-sized chunks. So we're going to be looking at Safe365's insight report, and chunking that up over the next 3 episodes. So what you'll see for the next month and a half is actually 4 episodes, right? Because it's 3 elements an episode. So we're chunking up this report over the next 2 months, and hopefully taking you guys along with us. One of the things that I wanted to share upfront, and you guys will probably see this on LinkedIn anyway, but I actually really proudly hold a NED seat, so non-exec director position for Safe365, but have also had a chat with the lovely Kirsty who produced this report, not a safety professional, a marketing professional, but really, really sort of pragmatic mind, and actually was allowing just the data to come through without her bias. So I was like, I'm not going to get involved because I will bias you. So actually just read that data and pull it together. And I have said, this is speak. Actually, and what we're really going to do is we're going to dig in. We might disagree with some elements, we'll debate it, and actually we're just going to respond to the research as we will to any research that we review. Okay, so let's dig in. For context, the visual on the right hand side of the screen, for those just listening, imagine a sunflower with 82 rectangular petals coming off of it, probably the best way that I could describe it. Those 82 elements are split into 10 modules, and there are question sets under each module, and you basically get graded on your maturity. And the maturity is over 5 levels. So there's loads of different types of maturity model. The 365 use tier 1 to 5. 1 is formative, so at the start of your safety culture journey. 2 is reactive, so you respond to things that go wrong. Tier 3 is systematic. The best way I could probably describe that is like compliance driven. You got processes driven by policy, pretty consistent with it. Tier 4, we're getting proactive, and tier 5, really anticipatory, preemptive culture. So each one of those elements gets graded, and this report breaks down the findings from doing this process, this safety culture process, over nearly 3,000 organizations across every industry, pretty much. So I don't think I have ever seen, and you may well correct me, Lisa, anything done over that breadth of business over the planet to see what consistently we are doing or not doing well in the safety space. So I think the insight is going to be interesting to dig into.
Yeah. And look, yeah, as safety culture software type things go, I haven't look, I've seen a few of them, I've worked with a few of them. I haven't seen any of them do a report or put out this kind of a report. That's not to say it's not out there, but I haven't seen it. So yeah, I'm interested. Like, just clarify, just in transparency, I have no affiliation with 365. I did have one beer with one of the guys in Berlin.
Which the
Which
tiny
one it
safety
was.
world that it is. Yeah, exactly. We've probably had one beer with most people that have done most things. But yeah, I think that's one of the, actually, before this happened, it's one of the things that I'd said to them is like, how could you have so much data from so many places and we're not sharing it, like, and for free? Let's not make this we should be sharing the insight for free. And that's exactly what they did. So yeah, amazing. Shall we dig in?
Right, let's go. So
over the report, so over all those elements and all that findings, there was basically sort of 12 key findings, weren't there, that were drawn out. That's what we'll be digging into.
yeah, and so we'll try and do the first 3, or what they call key insights. So the first key insight is about directors and management, and it's that director and management knowledge are holding safety culture maturity back. And there is a little bar chart graph there, and it's that like director knowledge sits at around 48% and management knowledge sits around 46.2%. So that's the maturity of their knowledge. Now we do have, I suppose, we have the list of kind of what goes into this, don't we?
Yeah.
So there's a little blurb here that I'm going to read as well. So the modules covering director and management knowledge score an average of just tier 3 in maturity. This module assesses elements including risk management knowledge, industry specific safety understanding, and legal duties. Low level of maturity here shows senior leaders are not well set up to lead from the top.
And so in digging into the questions under this, it was so interesting to see the questions that were about, so as a director, were you inducted? Do you have access to competent advice? It was lots about, do you understand? Like, do you understand what your duties are? Do you understand like what safety is? Do you understand what practical steps there are? Do all directors take practical steps to understand the operation? So about getting out on the tools, and the same question set then exists, interestingly, to management knowledge, so director knowledge and manager knowledge. What I was really thinking of when I was reading these questions was, and actually, I mean, go into your slide, but the key thing that was triggered for me is like, what part is their responsibility and what part's ours? Because at what point, so did they have an induction? That doesn't feel like something you would know unless your person said, hey, when you come in, if it was like your first gig, somebody needs to tell you that that needs to happen. Now, you as a director or a leader, management or director, getting out on the front line to actually understand the risk, that feels like you should be doing that anyway. That's like in the gut.
They should be doing inductions.
They should be out. So if we looked at, there's induction on one level, which I'm like, whose responsibility is it to give that to them and to tell them they need it? And on the other side of the scale for these question sets, it was are you getting out and about to at front line to understand what's going on? And I'm like, that does feel like it's 100% leadership responsibility, and you don't need somebody to tell you that you should be doing that. So I was like, looking through these questions, do you have access to competent advice? That's always been something that's completely perplexed me. It's like hidden in the management regs. But I've seen tiny businesses start, and these businesses are like small to massive. But at what point do you know, as like, I'm Sean the Sparky and I'm starting my own organization? At what point does he know that management regs even exist, or that he needs competent advice? So I had like a whole load of things come up for me on this. What about you?
I suppose when we dug into another slide that I'm showing, which I suppose breaks down a couple of more sections where those questions sit. And like, this is the average score, I suppose, across all these different industries.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you competent advice, legal understanding, director due diligence, director engagement, induction, da, 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 da. And then there's one called meeting agenda.
Oh, I knew you were going to get there.
And that's, so like all the rest are like 50, 42, 44%. And meeting agenda is right out the front at 64%. I was like, I wonder what question sits under that percentage. And you better be fucking sure it is probably, is safety on your agenda? And they'll go, yeah, it's the very first topic that we do because safety is first.
And because, and so what? Like, and it being first on your agenda.
Vomit.
Yeah, right.
Like, I remember so vividly my first safety advisor role. And I was in Sydney on a huge construction job, and I'm so naive, but I remember talking to one of the subcontractors, and he was like, you just have no fucking clue when you're talking about safety first. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, oh, safety first is the top of your agenda. And he said, the minute we get to that agenda, he said, you and your two safety buddies get up and leave the contractors meeting, which we did, and we were instructed to. We come in for the safety bit, we get up, we leave. And he goes, and you miss all the shit that really impacts safety and how they absolutely bully the shit out of all the subbies, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, and ever since, every time I see safety first at the top of the agenda, I'm like, yeah, just get it done and out of the way so we can get on with the real stuff.
Yeah. And I suppose this is the interesting thing about um one of the good things about having an overall score for this section, because in isolation, you can look at that finding 64% of organizations you absolutely nail the agenda, like yay, high five, job done, which sits up right up one of the only real things, well, the only thing in this area, director knowledge, that sits in tier 4 proactivity. It's really easy to feel proactive on this. So I think my challenge would be, if you have safety on your agenda and you are a director or a leader and you're like nailing this is epic, what level of conversation, not an agenda, not a tick, not a it's we said we should have it on a thing and we've got it on a thing, what level of conversation are you stimulating under that agenda item, and how much insight do you take away
Yes.
from it?
Like, what do you know after this meeting? What do you
Yes.
know?
Yeah, there was a viral video of a construction worker, and he had a hard hat on, his gloves on, and he was basically like, "Yep, nailed, nailed. Like, been trained to use my hammer, nailed." I was like, and then I'll go to work and then turn the camera around to walk through trash. Like, there's no level flooring for him to stand on with his, like, I've done my e-learning and I've got my PPE. It was just like, you have no idea. And this is absolutely such a wicked point you make, Elisa, about come in, hear it. And the worst thing is on the agenda for a discussion is very different to, we want a safety moment,
Yeah.
right? What a safety moment. What's your safety moment? And then people are like clawing
Oh,
at the, well, I told Jeff to use the level crossing on the site road. Well done. That's
oh.
fantastic safety moment this week.
Top tip on safety moments from our dear friend Damien McMullen. He did a safety moment. He did a safety moment a couple of months ago where he was like, so for this safety moment, I'm going to ask you guys a question. And the question is, what has been your favorite, most impactful safety moment since the start of this project?
Very good.
And they're all like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah. I take so anything out, like I look down here and lots of this stuff, like back to that first bit about like legal advice and competent advice and blah blah. I'm like, the primary duty of care thing, I do sometimes wonder, but I also wonder if that's what drives the need for induction at that level. Do we feel like we need to tell senior tables, do you realize that everyone's care is your responsibility? You have a duty, and it's not cascaded down to the safety team. It's not executed or delegated through. But this is all of us collectively. And I wonder whether, I don't know about you, if you've ever been through one of them safety inductions and you're like, oh my God, like my brain is melting.
Mate, I've delivered them. So yeah.
I've melted my own brain and
Melted
other
my own face off, yes.
It's like if you're showing somebody a slide that's like quoting the management regs or the Health and Safety at Work Act or any of that garbage, that like what are you inspiring? And isn't that what we're meant to do? Introduce you to your responsibilities, but also like what's the so what when they leave? What do we expect? And I wonder whether we get that mix right about.
Yeah, probably not. Because I was listening to Greg Smith was on a webinar, the safety curiosity webinars with Urban Greer, and he was talking about director inductions and of like this thing of, yeah, an induction for a director is not the same as induction for everybody else. It's for a director or senior management, but it is that thing of, do you actually understand this stuff? And do you understand the questions you need to be asking? Do you understand how to read a board report? Do you understand how to pull it apart? Do you understand how to get answers from behind the data? All that stuff that they're probably not like. And the other thing is, that is done for their financial competencies. Like, you could be fucking 100% they are taught how to do that.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much training that goes into for board members of how to read financial reports and all that kind of crap. But for safety,
Such a great point. It like, do you understand once you sit on the board or are a director or whatever, as an LT member, right? You're a leadership team meeting member. That how to dissect whether what is being told to you in that board report is accurate, on point, needs to happen. Is it illegal? Is something legally required? Is it a nice to have? What does progressive look like? What does bargain basement? Is this it?
Yeah.
Like, how would you know? How would you know?
Wouldn't know.
And to tell you, it triggers a thought. I just wrote this word down. If we wouldn't expect them to know, right? If you rise up through marketing, finance, operations, there isn't, maybe operations,
maybe operations, but the rest of them probably won't.
But you wouldn't. Imagine, I would say, imagine not having. How do you recruit how do you recruit a safety professional if you're starting and somebody has told you somewhere you need a safety professional, competent safety advice? How do you even know what great looks like? And I suppose that's the same with anything, like your finance director or whatever. But you're absolutely spot on. Directors will be trained to dice down financial information and know what good or bad is. What's a red line? What's a black line? But there isn't the same level of, you're not meant to know till this point, guys. You're not meant to, but let's give you. And maybe that's what the induction's meant to be.
Yeah.
But it's not. I doubt it. And if anybody is nailing this, if anybody out there is like, I have the most incredible director induction, please come on. Please come on and share it. Because
the people need to know.
Yeah. And then the other bit would be the big statement at the beginning, which is like, the maturity of this area holds safety back. And as I saw that, I was like, and then I thought, well, it's director and management knowledge are holding safety maturity back. And then I was like, but it does start from the top. It does. And if your board are driving it, it's how you drive. And if they're not, parts of the organization will organically find a drive, but they will not be doing it in a systematic way or in a joined up, vision focused way. So I think a bloody valid fight. Not surprising, I think, from what we're both saying. Not surprising finding.
Not surprising. And look, as with anything, people are answering this in the way that they could still be like, they might be like, yeah, I know what this means. I know my legal understanding. I'm like, oh, do you though? You're saying you do, but do you? So everything with a pinch of salt. It's indicative.
I've got a question for you then. In terms of, like, there are organizations, I'm not going to name any of them, that produce like director safety training, like know your responsibilities, those sorts of things. Is that what we should be? Not necessarily like I'm just going to say it, the equivalent of like the IOSH directors leading safety, all that sort of stuff. But there are going to be other organizations that do akin training, right? Other training providers available. Is that what we should be doing as a profession, to be like, let me give you a sheep dip so at least you have a base? Is there a basic external competency we should be given, do you think, to boards?
I think there should be. I think there should be. Whether it's that kind of thing, I don't know, because like, I think there needs to be a mix. Like, Jesus, get in trouble here now. No offense to anyone that delivers any of those, but like, a bit dry. So it's like, because you want them, yes, you absolutely, they need the legal stuff, but then you want to foster some bit of curiosity and empathy and all that as well. And be like, this, you also need these other elements are really critical if you're expecting to be leading safety management from the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I don't think there's any shock in that, in saying typically health and safety qualifications are dry. They sound dry, they are dry. And it's not so, like, I did my diploma, loved it, like, because I am a sado, I thrived. Um, but I also then went away and did a training qualification with a complete want to imagine if you delivered the breadth of knowledge with a level of absolute genuine care then for the profession. I mean, it would be game changing. So I think you can win or lose depending on whether you're compliance driven minded and delivering that training, or whether you're proper passionate
yeah.
about it. But yeah, amazing. So yeah, not surprising at all. And I think from it sounds like both of our perspective, this induction thing and how we give the competency to boards across all industries probably would be ace to address at some point, or needs to change, get better, more mature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, right. So the next one, our lack of maturity in risk tolerance conversations creates a barrier to more mature safety cultures and decision making. Now, this is a busy slide. Now,
Yeah.
there's a, is this a bar graph or a bar fucking chart? I don't even like bar chart. Anyway, whatever. There's colored boxes, okay, and they're vertical.
Yeah.
But they're broken down into risk tolerance, risk management control, risk review, and risk analysis susceptibility. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
And basically, organizations that were surveyed or that use the system sit either in a tier 2 or a tier 3 bracket. The
Yeah.
ones in the tier 2, well, they both seem to have their risk tolerance sits at 50%, but they're both kind of the same. But then when you move into the tier 3 crowd, they're up at 85% for risk management and control. And then 80% for risk review. So
that's percentage of industry. So 85% of industries are in tier 3 for risk management and risk control. I mean, it's so interesting to me when I see this chart. So for the people listening, not watching, to see um, five five possible options of tier 1 to tier 5 across the bottom, and to see nothing in tier 1, which I'm like, but also
I don't believe you.
I think some people sit in there, and then tier 4 and 5 barren.
Barren, nothing, not one.
Not even
And like,
single.
and also, this is we're I'm assuming that these companies are using the software, they're answering the questions, and the software is developing this. So this is just based on the answers that they're giving. So
This is by their own in
yeah.
industry.
So nobody even thinks they're doing that well. Like nobody thinks they're doing that. They might now, I don't want them to be thinking they're doing well when they're not
Yeah.
either. But like nobody would even put themselves in that higher level of maturity, which is interesting.
And I guess it's the, like, you answer the questions within the model and it will be like, I'm grading you. So it's, are you, I think we were looking at the content where we before, and it was like, do you, it's basically saying, do you document, do you have a consistent way to document, are you lining your risks up, do you know what your top risks are, and then essentially your ability to document them consistently and have decent conversations means that you can look at those risks and say, where is my level of tolerance for them. Now I would say, from my work across 6 industries, I have really only seen mature risk work in the last 3 years. lots of people are like, yeah, we know what our risks are, but what they've really done is like a 5x5 risk assessment matrix and banged
Yeah.
like ESG bad, like
Yeah.
things can go really wrong, or I don't know, like whatever, like other risks to the organization, financial risk, political risks, all
Mm.
those sorts of things. And so when I saw this, I was like, I get it. And if someone was facetiously going to ask me where I would stick most people, I'd be like, well, I've done this 22 years, and only in the last 3 have I seen any like mature risk work. I'd be like all lower end. So this didn't
Yeah.
shock me, but to have nothing, top tier,
Zero. Nobody is up there.
tumbleweed,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a shocker. So
It's interesting the little paragraph they have at the top as well. So it says, this one very specific element heavily dictates the overall tone of safety culture in an organization. It's tense, it's uncomfortable, but low levels of maturity here suggest our value sets around health and safety don't fully address the company position between people and profitability. Well, yeah,
I don't like it. It is uncomfortable.
it is uncomfortable. But it's like that is the reality.
Yeah.
Like that is the reality.
And I think this is the I was having a wicked conversation with a absolutely phenomenal female leader that I met recently, and she used this phrase about I want to be able to make a conscious, like I don't mind what the decision is going forward, but I want it to be a conscious one. That's all I want, rather than us sort of aimlessly like falling into the. And I think that that's what I see everywhere is like this apathetic. If I don't say it out loud, I've not actually made a decision that means I have to say out loud where I feel about people versus profit. We just roll into these things and be like, if nobody looks directly at the problem
Yeah.
and people get hurt, we'll be like, oh no, that's terrible. And then everyone's like, do you want to say to what level you're willing to accept that versus your level of investment to fix that? Like, where's the appetite? Where is it? And I
Mm.
think that's the discomfort is
But
everyone's going to
even
go on.
like as safety professionals, we're not even comfortable having that conversation.
No,
Like we wouldn't even broach leadership with that because we're just going, oh, but the moral case is like, oh, it's like, lads, no.
the moral
I know
drum.
we've spoken about this like probably to death at this stage about
Yeah.
being better at conveying this stuff to leaders and businesses and all the rest. But like we're not better at it.
No,
And the other thing is that I think I had shared the Safety of Work podcast the other week. They did a fantastic episode on a piece of research about is safety good for business?
mm,
On the research, guys, the research doesn't fucking bear it out. You know, doesn't
yeah,
bear it out.
it's
Company that had Piper Alpha is still going, they're grand.
mm,
You know,
yeah,
Macondo, yeah, they're still actually, yeah, they're okay.
they're all
They're
fine.
they're
Yeah,
thriving. They're not surviving, they're thriving. So like it just and how it's different for smaller organizations versus larger organizations, all that kind of thing. But definitely there are in extremely massive organizations, there's definitely conversations at the top where they go, yeah, we can afford to
oh god,
like spill X amount of oil or kill X amount of people or whatever. They're like, yeah, we can take the hit. And they can take the hit.
I think that's the bit that I think I have to have a decent debate, not go down the wormhole of how sad that makes me, because it does, right? So will not cry into my glass of wine. But that is, and but also it's why the people that work in safety, majority of the time, the people that we would look across the profession and say love, respect, do great work, they work in there because actually somebody budgeting for death is unacceptable and immoral. But right back to, and I've done it on like a webinar recently and I did it in Berlin, back to the true cost of harm situation, we also need to get way better as a professional, as a profession, in being able to articulate the actual commerciality of safety. What is it costing you now in terms of your level of loss? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what safety costs, and like you were saying about that profitability piece. But having a safety team and decent safety systems and process, and what it takes labor, it takes time, it takes licenses, it takes salary, and it's there is a genuine cost to implementing even the basic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's actually one of the interesting when I talked about the true cost of safety in what we already have and our duty to exercise that to its fullest extent and then give back if we're not using it, right? The labor, the time, or whatever. It's where I actually saw somebody in the crowd cross their arms and start shaking their head at me. Where I was just like, it's expensive to run a safety team, and to be able to get empathy from the other way, you have to also be like, I already cost a fortune.
Yeah.
I already do. And you have to give empathy back to what am I already taking, and am I genuinely utilizing it? Not to go off that tangent. So I do think back to that skill set piece, there is a whole thing around maybe us creating proper language about this, but also I had a really good challenge once about restaurants that made me furious for weeks, weeks and weeks and weeks. So I was just like, the number back to my zero harm days, because we were all there once.
Well, we were. Look, we were.
We were right. We all had the hard hat, we all had the clipboard, and we all had the zero on it. And I was just like, well, the answer always has to be zero. It just has to be. And then this dude, not a safe professional, was just like, okay. And then laid out what his organization provided. So, like, provided for communities and bonkers amounts of people. And it was just like, so, and I think I actually heard of Ruth Denyer doing this for some people, and she called it, I think it was scores on the doors.
It's cards on the floor.
Cards on the floor.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you do this massive monumental thing, but you have like 4 paper cuts, like not both, definitely appetite there. And then you go up, like, you have this many millions of man hours. There is a leg broken, there's 4 legs broken, there's like, and it was just like, at what point do we get, can we stop?
Yeah.
But you have to have the debate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I am not shocked that there is low levels of maturity, and I do agree it must and does create a barrier to mature cultures, because if we can't talk about harm and we can't talk about tolerance, it's not mature, is it?
No. No, we're only fooling ourselves. Really. That's
Any other thoughts on this for you?
um the whole, and I know we've spoken about it all, but the whole safety culture thing, like, is it like, this is great, look, fine, it's this piece of software and I have all the questions in the background and do all the things.
Go on.
But can you measure safety culture? I don't think so. I don't, and again, I don't, like, is it a subculture? Is it a separate thing? Whatever. We've had this discussion before.
I mean, but the discussion is that there's no such thing. It is business culture, but this is a subset of it, because we specifically talk about attitudes towards safety. And I think I've forgotten which one of our many pods this was on, but it was just like, we also like have to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere. And like, culture is an emergent thing. It's always changing. So I don't think you can really put your hands on it. I don't think you can control it. You might be able to influence it and nudge it either which way. So yeah, and the like safety culture maturity, that piece, and the kind of the linearity of you're at a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, that also kind of I'm not big on. But all that aside, I'm enjoying going through the data.
Like the data. I think the one, and I don't know, and I've never asked actually whether it was conscious, But I think in the middle of the sunflower, the overall grading for your organization, they never called it a safety culture score. They called it an index, because it was like, this is just indicative of where you have answered the questions and where you've come in terms of like that, you know, doing great things maturely and doing not doing great things immaturely, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think in the, and we'll share the link to those listening and to those watching, they specifically talk at the beginning about the distinction between, we call it safety culture, but actually we know what we're talking about really is business culture and how it affects safety, which I think is a damn good call out.
Yeah, but safety culture sells, so that's that's all part of it. It's just easier to call it that. And there is a part where like people can latch on to that as an idea without getting
lost in the debate
Like
and it's back to that start somewhere, right? Which is like, I want to start a journey of knowing where I am poor, where I am all right, and where I'm golden. And there is something that exists that can at least tell me that and start me on my journey. So it's, you know, starting somewhere with great intent as a safety professional, wanting to be able to highlight your areas of weakness, essentially, so you can move forward.
Yeah.
No matter what software you're using, if that's your intent, it's a good intent.
Yeah, I would agree. We're probably at wrap time. I don't think we're going to get.
No way. Were there any other slides for?
There are other slides. There's 3 more slides.
To element 2?
No.
Okay. So should we do 3 next time?
We'll do 3 next time.
Amazing.
Just for commutable duration.
So for you audience, my lovelies, our lovelies, we hope you enjoyed the debate. We thought we would get through the 3 elements today, but there was enough debate in just the 2. So we might end up having this as a 5-part series, who knows, but we hope you enjoyed it, and join us again in a couple of weeks for elements 3, 4, and possibly 5 if we have
maybe. Sure, look, we'll see how we get on. We'll see how we look. We're our own bosses, okay? We can just
do what we like.
Let's do whatever we like.
Lovely. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and have a lovely commute day.
Bye.
Bye.